Now let's take a close look at the scapula. And we can look at real bone versus fake bone, but in reality, both of these are plastic. So the only difference is one's going to be left, one's going to be right. This gets us into the parts of the bone where students struggle with the most. When you're studying, you're usually studying from a picture. The picture can be the one on the left or the one on the right. But the easiest way and the best way to study these is, you'll hear me say over and over again, pick them up. Because if you're picking them up, you're not only even pointing, touching, and feeling the different structures, you're actually able to turn it around in your hand. And if you turn it around in your hand and look at all the different sizes, then you'll be able to determine which side is medial, lateral, superior, inferior. And this is important because a lot of these structures are going to be named superior, medial, lateral, and inferior. So let's get started. I have them on the table like this, and this is actually an anatomical position. More further apart, but you get the idea. The reason why I showed them like this is because I want to show you this indentation pointing out. This indentation is called the glenoid cavity, and that's important because that's where the head of the humerus fits into, and that's where your humerus and your arms are going to be dangling from. So once you know that that's the glenoid cavity, you know that it is pointing out. So this is going to be lateral, that side's going to be medial. Now, what's top and what's bottom? Easiest way to kind of look at that is I'm going to turn them around. And if you kind of see, it's flat on this side. There's kind of two little things up here. You can kind of see those two little things. So let's kind of look at those two little things and look at the side that has this bump. This bump is called the scapular spine. And if you think about where is your spine's on the back. So your scapular spine's also on the back. And if you follow the scapular spine all the way up to the top, the scapular spine is going to be attached to the acromion. And if you think back to the acromion process of the clavicle, this is where your clavicle is going to be going into. So the acromion is attached to the scapular spine, and this goes to the back. So that means the side with the spine is posterior. This smooth area is going to be anterior. Now let's look at this front side. It's got a little bump right there, and it's got a little point down here. Some students like to think, oh, the point always points down, and other students just say, well, if I know that's the acromion and the clavicle attaches to it, I know that's the top because I can touch my clavicle and I can also palpate and feel my acromial process of the scapula. So if you have to take that extra step and say that points down and that's inferior, that's fine. But for some of you, you'll be able to determine, follow the spine up to the acromion, this is top, that's bottom, and because you did the glenoid cavity, you know lateral and medial. Now let's look at them all. So this border right here is called your medial border because it's on the inside. Lateral is going to be on the outside, superior is going to be up top. That's going to be an angle or a little point, so that's superior angle. That point on the bottom is inferior angle. Now you think you have all the structures down, but there's one more to go. And this is one of the most difficult on pretty much the body, is find out which is the acromion. The acromion's attached to the scapular spine. Then you have another indentation or another little process that juts out. That one right there is called your coracoid process. Coracoid, because if you look at it, it almost looks like a crow's beak. So coracoid for crow's beak. And that's going to be important because in the elbow, there's going to be something called a coronoid process. So coracoid is in your shoulder, coronoid is in your elbow. And those are all the structures that stick out. The only other three that we have is these little indentations. And these little indentations are extremely important when we go over rotator cuff muscles. So this indentation is going to be the subscapular fossa. Because if you look at this and this is a cat or something, this is going to be below or sub the clavicle or scapula. Then if you go right here, this indentation above the spine is going to be your supraspinous fossa, because that is the indentation above the spine, which makes that indentation below the spine the infraspinous fossa. Once you go through all those structures, you have everything you need to know for the scapula.